Mayong ugto sa inyong tanan. Narito po tayo ngayon sa siyudad ng Iloilo, no? Sa Iloilo City Hall, kung saan kanina po tayo po ay nag-turnover ng mga karagdagang bakuna, 50,000 Sinovac at 10 ventilators, 5 CPAP machines at 5 mga BPAP machines, no? Para po sa siyudad ng Iloilo. Kasama po natin ngayon ang alkalde po ng Iloilo City, walang iba kundi si Mayor Jerry P. Treñas. Kasama rin po natin ang kinatawan po sa Kongreso ng Siyudad ng Lone District of Iloilo City, si Honorable John Jam Baronda. Mamaya po ay maririnig din po natin si Yusek Leopoldo Vega, ang ating treatment czar. Pero sa panel ngayon po, kasama rin po natin ang ating ASEC of the DOH, Dr. Romeo A. Ong, ang ating DOH Regional Director for Region 6, Dr. Subaan, and ang ating Director for Logistics ng DOH, Dr. Ariel Valencia, Director of DOH. Maya-maya po, maririnig po natin si Mayor Treñas, Congresswoman Beronda at si Yusek Vega. Pero bago po yon, na-aproban po ng inyong IATF kahapon at 30 ng Hunyo ang final community quarantine classifications para sa buwan ng Hulyo. Ito po ay aprobado na ating Presidente. Tignan po natin ang infographic ng mga lugar na nasa MECQ, GCQ at MGCQ. May dalawang nabago po dito, no? Una, ang probinsya ng Apayao sa Cordillera Administrative Region ay nasa GCQ simula July 1 hanggang July 15, 2021. Ito ay matapos na maaprubahan ng ITF ang appeal nito na ma-de-escalate mula sa Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine Classification patungo po sa GCQ. Habang aapilan ng probinsya ng Ifugao na ma-de-escalate sa MGCQ mula sa MECQ ay inaprubahan din ng inyong IATF. Samantala, naglabas din kahapon ng inyong IATF ang listahan ng tinatawag na green countries at jurisdiction. Kung inyong matatandaan, naglabas ang inyong IATF ng guidelines noong Lunes, June 28, 2021 para sa inbound international travel ng mga individual na nabakunahan sa Pilipinas at mga individual na nabakunahan sa tinatawag na green countries or jurisdictions. Ang green countries or jurisdictions ayon sa IATF Resolution 123-C ay iyong mga low-risk countries jurisdictions ayon sa Department of Health. Anong basihan ng pagiging low-risk? Una, para sa mga lugar na may populasyon na higit sa 100,000, ang basihan ay ang incidence rate or cumulative new cases over the past 28 days per 100,000 population. Kasama rin sa basihan ay ang new case trajectory or case trend for daily new cases over the past 28 days. Pangalawa, para naman sa mga populasyon na may mababa sa 100,000 ang mga basihan, ay ang COVID-19 case counts or cumulative new cases over the past 28 days at ang new case trajectory. Makikita sa susunod na infographic ang mga green countries at jurisdiction kung saan pinapayagan ang fully vaccinated individuals na makapasok ng Pilipinas subject to 7-day quarantine. Ito po ang mga bansang Albania, American Samoa, Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, Australia, Benin, Belize, the British Virgin Islands, Brunei, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cayman Islands, Chad, China, Cote d'Ivoire, Eswatini, Falkland Islands, French Polynesia, Gambia, Ghana, Greenland, Grenada, Hong Kong, Iceland, Isle of Man, Israel, Laos, Liberia, Malawi, Malta, Marshall Islands, Mauritius, Micronesia, Montserrat, Morocco, Mozambique, New Caledonia, New Zealand, Nigeria, Northern Marianan Islands, Palau, Rwanda, Sabah, St. Barthélemy, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Pierre and Miquelon, Sierra Leone, Senegal, Singapore, St. Eustatius, South Korea, Taiwan, Togo, Turks and Caicos Islands, UK, Vietnam at Zimbabwe. Napagdesisyonan din po ng inyong IATF na ang opsyon na ipresenta ng Philippine Overseas Labor Office validations bilang proof of vaccination status ay exclusive lamang po sa mga overseas Filipino workers. Magsisimulang tumanggap ang ating mga polo ng applications for validation simula July 5, 2021. Samantala, mga OFWs na makakapagpresenta ng International Certificate of Vaccination ay maaari na rin pong makapag-avail ng green lanes simula ngayong araw, July 1, 2021, provided na makakasunod sila sa mga requirements. Paalala, mayroon pa rin pong 7 araw ng facility-based quarantine upon arrival kahit na ikaw ay fully vaccinated sa Pilipinas o sa abroad. Para sa mga tagapagsubaybay natin sa Iloilo City at Visayas, libre ang bakuna, first dose at second dose po. COVID-19 updates po tayo. Meron tayong 4,509 na mga bagong kaso ayon sa June 30, 2021 datos ng DOH. Muling tumaas po ang ating recovery rate. Ito ay nasa 94.8%. Maraming salamat po sa ating mga medical frontliners. Nasa 1,339,248 po ang bilang ng mga nakarecover. Samantalang malungkot po namin binabalita na nasa 24,662 ang binuwian na po ng buhay. Nakikiramay po kami sa mga naulila. Nasa 1.75% po ang ating fatality rate. Ito naman po ang kalagayan ng ating mga ospital, no? 42% sa buong Pilipinas, 55% ang utilized ang ating ICU beds, 47% po utilized ang ating isolation beds, 44% utilized ang ward beds at 34% ang ating mga ventilators. Sa NCR po, 42% po ang nagagamit na ICU beds, 39% po ang nagagamit na isolation beds, 35% po ang nagagamit na ward beds at 31% po ang nagagamit na ventilators. Sa ibang usapin, pinirpahan po ni Presidente Rodrigo Roa Duterte kahapon, June 30, 2021, ang Republic Act No. 11569 na nag-extend ng real estate amnesty. Binibigyan ng batas na hanggang June 14, 2023 ang pagpa-file po ng sinumpaang estate amnesty return. Isa pa pong good news, mamayang hapon po ay pangungunahan ni Presidente Rodrigo Roa Duterte kasama ni DOTR Secretary Artugade ang inauguration ng LRT2 East Extension Project. 2 istasyon po ang madadagdag sa LRT2, ang Marikina Pasig Station at ang Antipolo Station. Ang proyektong ito ay 2 decades in the making. 1999 ho nang ito'y unang pinilano. 2012, inaaprubahan ng NEDA Board. At taong 2017 naman nagsimula ang aktual na construction. Sa pagbubukas ng LRT2, bababa ang travel time mula Recto sa Manila hanggang Antipolo, Rizal, mula sa kasalukuyang 3 oras na biyahe gamit ang bus o jeepney sa 30 to 40 minuto na lamang. Oras na maging operational ang proyekto sa July 6, 2021, madadagdagan ng 80,000 na pasahero kada araw ang kasalukuyang 240,000 passenger capacity ng LRT2. Sa ibang usapin, ang buwan ng Hulyo ay Nutrition Month. Ang Nutrition Month ay may temong malnutrition patuloy sa labanan, first 1,000 days tututukan. Ito ay panawagan para sa lahat na magtulong-tulong para lutasin ang malubhang problema ng malnutrition sa ating bansa at paintingin palalo ang mga serbisyo sa first 1,000 days ng buhay. Sa kampanya na pinangungunahan ng National Nutrition Council, pinapahalagahan ang wastong nutrisyon para mapalakas ang ating resistensya laban sa sakit, lalo na laban sa COVID-19, makamit ang tamang paglaki ng mga bata at maging produktibo ang ating mga mamamayan. Mabuhay po ang National Nutrition Council. Dito po nagtatapos ang ating presentasyon. Unahin ko na po si Mayor Jerry Treñas. Mayor Treñas, kamusta na po ang estado ng COVID sa ating syudad at ano pa pong mga iba?
The National IATF through you, Secretary Roque and Secretary Galvez, for allowing the delivery of 50,000 Sinovac vaccines to Iloilo City. Aside from this, we have seen the ventilators, the high-flow oxygen cannula, and additional PPE for our frontliners. Kami po nagpapasalamat kay Presidente Rodrigo Duterte at saka sa national government sa mga tulong na pinadala dito. Papasalamat din kami sa presensya ni Yusek Leopoldo Vega, ni ASEC Ong, ni Director Ariel ng DOH kasi kailangan namin ng tulong para improve ang amin healthcare capacity. And we need all the support that we can get. And we are very thankful to the national government and especially to you for your physical presence here in Iloilo City. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Treñas. May we ask for a few words from our Congresswoman of the Lone District of Iloilo City, Congresswoman Jamjab Baronda.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Secretary Harry Roque. Of course, the presence of DOH and together with Mayor Jerry Treñas, Ilonggo felt the presence of the national government. And we would like to say thank you in advance to President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. And of course, salamat din sa kay Secretary Galvez, Secretary Lorenzana. And I would like also say thank you to Secretary Bebot Bello because after this, we need to reboot the economy. He gave us 50 million pesos para sa COVID adjustment program para sa 10,000 transport sector for Iloilo City. So again, thank you sa vaccines. I hope that with the support of our barangay captains, with the support of every Ilonggo, with the leadership of our beloved Mayor Jerry Treñas, who is so assertive, matulungan po natin. At together, we will face this COVID. Salamat, Secretary.
Kasama rin po natin ngayon si Treatment Czar Yusek Vega. No? Yusek, ano po ang plano nyo while you are here in Iloilo? Because I understand you will be spending the night here in Iloilo. The floor is yours, Yusek Vega.
Good morning po sa lahat. Spock Harry, Mayor Jerry, and of course, Congresswoman Jamjam. Unang-una po, papasalamat kami for the very warm reception given to us by Iloilo City and the city officials here. Ang Iloilo po ngayon at present is on moderate risk category. That means that the 2-week growth rate is already negative, but the ADAR, which is the average daily attack rate, is still high. But ang problema po sa Iloilo City ay yung HCUR, yung ating healthcare utilization rate, lalong-lalo na sa intensive care units, kasi nasa critical risk position. And this is the reason why we are here together with the Secretary and my DOH family to talk to the different medical directors and hospital institutions, both public and private, on how best we can adjust to the crisis or to the surge that we have here in Iloilo. That means that we need to come up with better strategies on making sure that the critical and severe cases from in Iloilo and from the nearby provinces will be can access the critical care units here in Iloilo City. So on behalf of the Department of Health, Secretary Francisco Duque, we are here to support Iloilo City.
Okay, tuloy na po tayo sa open forum and you can ask any questions from anyone in the panel. No? As usual po, when we go on an out-of-town press briefing, we will be alternating. Unahin po natin ang Malacanang Press Corps and then the local media will be moderated by our Lizelle Lamasan of the Philippine Information Agency. So, Yusek Roque, go ahead please.
Good afternoon, Secretary Roque at sa ating po mga bisita. From Laila Salaveria of Inquirer, question number 1 niya, what does the government think of the World Bank report that based on 3 multi-country assessments, Philippine students are faring poorly in math, reading, and science even before COVID, and the crisis in education will have been made worse by COVID?
Well, that is very disturbing po and very alarming. And I'm sure Secretary Lynn Briones and her team at the Department of Education will sit down and study as well as discuss ways forward upon receiving this World Bank report. Pag po kayo mag-alala, pag-aaralan po mabuti natin kung ano yung sinasabi ng report at titignan po natin kung paano natin mababago ang ating curriculum, lalong-lalo na sa panahon po ng pandemya.
Second question po niya, since face-to-face classes are out of the picture for now, what interventions will it do to improve the quality of education and address other concerns such as students' low growth mindset and poor nutrition?
Well, sa poor nutrition po, no, I was the author in the 17th Congress of the masustansyang pagkain para sa mga kabataan, no. Although wala po tayong face-to-face, tuloy naman po yung programang yan, dinideliver po sa ating mga kabataan yung masustansyang pagkain at dinagdagan pa po natin ang libreng gatas na programa, no, para dun sa mga kulang na timbang. Pagdating po sa mga innovations, palagi naman po nag-i-innovate ang ating Department of Education. We are on blended learning po. We utilize modules, we utilize TV, radio, as well as computer-aided forms of educational material po. No? But I'm sure that the process of adapting to the new normal continues, and the Department of Education will continue to introduce innovations.
Third question po niya, what has the President said, if any, about reports that allege drug lord Peter Lim has slipped out of the country?
Well, wala pa po namang konfirmasyon po yan, no? Dahil lang sabi po ng ating Department of Justice na under po ang immigration, wala pa po silang record na nakalabas po si Peter Lim. No? Pero nonetheless, nasa watch list naman po ng Interpol na to cancel his passport and to make sure that because he has no travel documentation, that wherever he may be, kung abroad man siya, maalerto yung mga receiving state kung nasa saan siya.
Last question po ni Laila Salaveria, what does the palace say to concerns that this shows that the drug war only targets the poor and treats those with connection and influence differently?
Unang-unang po, wanted si Peter Lim. Wala po siyang kalayaan. Pangalawa po, nakakulong po si Senator Laila de Lima. Proof na hindi lang po mahihirap ang tinatarget dito sa war on drugs.
Thank you, Secretary Roque.
Punta muna tayo kay Lizelle for local media question before we go to a Zoom question from Mela. Go ahead, Lizelle.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lizelle Marilamasan of the Philippine Information Agency, and at this time, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Joel Franco of RMN Iloilo for his question.
Secretary, good afternoon. Ano bang guidelines natin in allocating vaccines sa mga LGUs? Because seemingly, parang may pabago-bago tayong sistema on how we allocate vaccines sa bawat LGUs.
Pabago-bago po talaga yan kasi depende sa sitwasyon ng COVID sa iba't ibang lugar. So kung dati po walang prioridad ang Iloilo City, ngayon po meron ng prioridad because of the recent surge. Kaya nga po nagkaroon tayo ng tinatawag na NCR plus 8 plus 10 at kasama na po sa area na mabigyan ng prioridad ang Iloilo City. And this explains why medyo malaki po yung na-deliver natin ngayon, no, na 50,000 na Sinovac.
So, do we say na pag hindi magkakaroon ng surge sa isang LGU, hindi sila makatatanggap ng mismatched na number of vaccines?
Well, ang ating allocation po really is dependent on population, no? Our community classification, no? So we always look at yung 2-week average attack rate, yung average attack rate, healthcare utilization rate, also in giving, in determining the allocation of a given area for vaccines. Uulitin ko po, vaccines will prevent diseases, pero ang epekto po ng vaccines will be felt 5 weeks later. So kinakailangan po, ang primary weapon natin against the COVID is prevention, mask, hugas, iwas, and detection sa aggressive testing po natin, isolation, contact tracing.
Kukunin ko lang po yung reaksyon nyo sa sinabi ni Mayor Jerry Treñas kanina na parang iba yung vaccine na ibinibigay sa mga malalaking syudad doon sa NCR tapos iba naman dito sa lungsod ng Iloilo.
Well, meron pong cold storage capacity ang Iloilo City, so makakarating po sa kanila yung mga dito po, so yung mga sub-zero vaccines. Kakadating nga lang po nung isang araw ng Moderna. So give it time po, no? Makakarating naman po yan sa lahat ng mga urban centers na merong cold storage capacity. So hindi lang po Moderna yan, meron po tayong 40 million na darating na Pfizer, and Pfizer will make it also to Iloilo City. Okay, Mela Lesmoras of PTV4 by Zoom, please.
Hi, good afternoon, Secretary Roque at sa ating mga guests po ngayon. Secretary Roque, on green countries lang po, I understand na sa IATF resolution na rin naman ito, pero para mas marinig ng ating mga kababayan, lalo na ibang nagtatanong bakit yung kanilang bansa na pinagtutuluyan ngayon ay wala sa listahan, ano po ba yung mga naging basehan ng ating IATF at ng DOH sa pagpili nitong green countries? At ito po ba ay definite na o may chance?
Well, depende po sa kaso ng COVID dun sa mga lugar na yon, magbabago po yan. Pero ang tinitignan po natin, hindi lang yung percentage ng mga nabakunahan sa mga areas classified as green countries, kung hindi, yung prevalence rate din po. No? Binasa ko po kung ano yung criteria. No? So, similar po yan doon sa tinatawag nating attack rate at 2-week attack rate na binabasihan natin sa ating quarantine classification. Siyempre po, titignan natin yung dami ng COVID doon sa mga lugar na yan. Alam ko po, marami nagtatanong na ang Estados Unidos hindi pa po kasama dyan sa tinatawag nating green countries kasi mataas nga po ang mga kaso ng COVID sa Estados Unidos ngayon.
Opo. And Secretary Roque, another follow-up po about sa green countries kasi may mga OFWs po tayong nakausap na like sa Hong Kong, may ilan na pwedeng umuwi pero nasa 8 days lang or 2 weeks or mas maunti nga lang. So ang tanong ng ilan, may chance po kaya na dumating yung panahon na wala ng quarantine at all, swab test na lang? At if ever man, kailan po kaya natin nakikitang darating yung panahong ganito?
Well, ang tanong mo, if there is a possibility, there is always a possibility. Pero sa ngayon po, from what I know, no, wala pa rin pong bansa na hayaang pumapasok ang kahit sino na wala pong quarantine. Lalong-lalo na po dahil meron nga po tayong Delta variant. At least dito po sa karatig bansa natin. I know that people can freely go to the United States, no, without a quarantine requirement, pero increasingly dito po sa lugar na ng daigdig kung saan na tayo, talagang meron pong quarantine requirement. Although marami na pong nagle-lessen to 7 days ang quarantine period para sa mga vaccinated individuals, gaya po ng ginawa natin.
Opo, and may final question na lamang po, Secretary Roque. Officially today, pumasok na tayo sa second half ng taong 2021. Nasa na po tayo ngayon sa ating laban kontra COVID-19? At yun nga, sa gitna pa rin itong Delta variant at iba pang variants ng COVID-19. Confident pa rin po ba tayo na ma-achieve natin yung better Christmas?
Yes, confident pa rin po tayo for a better Christmas. We've exceeded the 10 million mark for vaccination. We have managed the COVID cases in Metro Manila +8 na naging kuta talaga ng COVID-19. There are more areas now under MECQ, but population-wise, ang population naman is not as great as when the numbers were so high or at its peak dito po sa Metro Manila +8. No? And we're confident that with more supplies of the vaccine coming in, mas marami.
Okay, thank you
Okay,
so much.
punta tayo uli kay Yusek Roque.
Thank you, Secretary Roque.
Thank you very much, Mela. Yusek Roque, please.
Yes, thank you, Secretary Roque. From Margot Gonzalez ng SMNI. Within this week daw po ay lilipad na si Senator Manny Pacquiao para sa fight niya sa laban niya sa Agosto. Totohanin ba ni Presidente ang banta niya sakaling mabibigo ang senador na magpalabas ng listahan ng mga korap na ahensya?
Well, inaantay po ni Presidente yung listahan ng mga korap na ahensya ni Senator Pacquiao. No? Gaya ng sinabi ko kahapon, bagamat sinabi niya isa dun sa ahensyang yun ay DOH, talaga naman pong naimbestigahan na yan fully ng Senado. No? So wala pong bago dun sa sinabi niyang departamento na DOH. So sana nga po, bago man umalis si Senator Pacquiao, makapagsabik siya kung sino talaga dapat maimbestigahan dahil ang mensahe ni Presidente, hindi po niya tinotolerate ang korupsyon. Malaman lang niya kung saan meron sunog at papatayin niya yung sunog na yun.
Opo. For Yusek Vega, question from Sweden Velado of PTV. Yusek Vega, may recent study na ipinalabas ang University of Oxford saying mixing doses of Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines creates a strong immune response. If this can make use of scarce vaccines more flexible, are we also willing to do it in the country? Yusek Vega.
Yusek Vega, nakuha niyo po yung question. Unfortunately, can we find the way to have a monitor so we can hear the questions here? Subukan lang natin na kasi all the rest of the panelists, di nila naririnig yung na nangyayari mga questions and everyone else, no? So if we could find a way to broadcast, siguro even through a cellphone, lalagyan natin ng mic para alam lang ang mga questions. But Yusek Vega, the question is, may recent study na linabas ang Oxford po saying mixing doses of Pfizer and AstraZeneca, are we willing to do it in this country?
Thank you, Spokari. Tama ho yun. There's a preliminary results na lumalabas na itong mixing and matching of different vaccine platforms, kagaya ng AstraZeneca at saka Pfizer, has been done. And they found out that people injected with AstraZeneca and Pfizer, or the other way around, had a good quantity of antibodies and cell-mediated immunity. Very effective in terms of the results, but this is just a very preliminary study. What they're saying is that we still have to make use of the bigger clinical trials, which is actually the same vaccine, or the same platforms. But this study actually is a very good, is a good chance, and good also to recommend that later on there might be a flexibility in terms of mixing and matching different vaccines. So with probably in the near future, when we have on the a bigger study that has to be concluded, I think this will be a better perspective or advantage for countries wherein the vaccines are not are limited into the supplies that are coming in. So mixing and matching would be a very good strategy and a form of flexibility for the population to get vaccinated.
May second question siya.
Okay.
May second question siya, Secretary Roque. Where are we right now in terms of studying the possibility of mixing and matching vaccines? Are we purely dependent on WHO guidelines?
Yusek, may follow-up question sa'yo. May follow-up question sa'yo. Ulitin ko lang po yung tanong, no? Where are we in terms of studying the possibility of mixing and matching vaccines? Are we purely dependent on WHO guidelines?
Yes, we are very much dependent on the clinical trials done, especially on bigger centers, and of course the WHO guideline. That would be the strategy of the national vaccination implementation.
Thank you, Yusek. Can we go now to Rizel for a question from the local media, please?
Thank you, Secretary Roque. Our next question comes from Mr. Arniel Lumbo of RGMA.
Secretary, good morning. Are we saying here that the rollout is dependent on whether deaths and sicknesses are prevalent and on the rise before national government attention is given?
No, we are distributing vaccines to all on the basis of population. No? But of course, we are giving more to areas with local surges.
So it depends on the recommendation of DOH or every region.
It will depend on the recommendation of experts, yes, and epidemiologists.
One more thing, Secretary. When we can see realization of equitable distribution of vaccines, ano ang inyong masasabi sa mga Ilonggo who are desperate for protection?
Alam niyo po, ang katotohanan, hindi po sapat ang bakuna sa ngayon. Lahat po ng ating mga kababayan ay sasabi, kulang po ang bakuna. Yes, there are more sometimes given to Metro Manila plus 8 areas. only because of the higher cases there, but also because of the higher population. But it is never enough as of now. Hindi lang po tayong nauubusan ng supply, buong Pilipinas po yan. We ask your indulgence po because unfortunately, we do not manufacture the vaccines. Meron po talagang ang mga bakuna ay natatapos na po ng kanilang vaccination program gaya ng Estados Unidos na inaasahan natin magdedeklara ng independence from COVID sa July 4. So lumuluwag nga po ang supply. Kaya nga po naka-order na po tayo ng 40 million na Pfizer. Hindi lang po Iloilo nagkukulang ng vaccine. Lahat po ng syudad, lahat ng probinsya, lahat ng sulok ng Pilipinas, kulang po talaga ang vaccine. Kasi hindi po dumarating siya na isang pulto lamang. Unti-unti po talaga ang pagdating. Kaya nga po, doon sa unti-unti na pagdating ng supply, mayroon tayong binibigyan ng priority, yung mga most vulnerable. At ngayon po, habang dumadaming supply, ini-include na natin ang economic frontliners. So humihingi po kami ng pasensya dahil yan po ang realidad. We cannot do anything about it. Sabi nga po ni Secretary Galvez, kahit anong gawin natin na talagang we're limited by the fact na kakaunti po talaga ang supply ng mga bakuna. But I think our strategy worked kasi kung inantay natin yung mga preferred vaccines na ginagawa sa West, we would not have successfully vaccinated in excess of 10 million people already before the first sizable amount of Western vaccines arrive in the country. So I ask for the patience po of my kapwa Ilonggo. Hindi lang po tayo ang talagang nagreklamo na kulang ang vaccine. It's the whole Philippines po. Because right now, wala pa pong 20 million ang dumating na bakuna sa ating bansa. Okay. Okay, punta tayo kay Melo. Acuña please, by Zoom. Tayo kay Melo. Acuña please, by Zoom. Tayo kay Melo. Acuña please, by Zoom. By Zoom. By Zoom. Go ahead, Melo. Go ahead, Melo.
Okay. Kung wala pa si Melo, perhaps we should go to...
Kung wala pa si Melo, perhaps we should go to Yusek Roque, please.
Secretary Roque, question from Chris Jose of Remate. Reaksyon sa sinabi ni Senator Pacquiao na dalawang bagay ang kaya niyang panghawakan. Hindi siya tiwali at hindi siya sinungaling. Nagugat ito sa naging hamon ni Pangulong Duterte na pangalanan po ng Senador ang mga corrupt officials sa gobyerno matapos naman ang naunang sinabi ni Pacquiao na malala ang korupsyon sa kasalukuyang administrasyon.
Good for him po. But,
Good for him po. But patuloy pong inaantay ni Presidente yung sinasabi niyang mga korap na ahensya nang sa ganun, titignan ni Presidente kung talagang kinakailangan may sibakin dyan. No? Pero kinakailangan, sabihin niya kung saan yung korupsyon, anong ahensya yan at anong ebidensya niya.
Opo. Ang second question po niya, ano ang nakikita ng Malacanang sa motibo ni Pacquiao na tila binabangga si Pangulong Duterte? Sa tingin niyo, tama ba ang estratehiya ng senador para lamang maging bukang bibig ang kanyang pangalan hanggang sa halalan?
Politika po yan, no? Alam naman natin lahat, gustong tumakbo ng Presidente ni Senator Pacquiao. Sa akin po, hindi tamang estratehiya yan. Kasi napakatagal naman pong nagsama ni Senator Pacquiao at ni Presidente. At sa ngayon po, wala naman pong pinapangalanang pang tao ang Presidente na i-endorso niya para maging Presidente sa susunod na halalan. At paulit-ulit ko nga pong sinasabi, no? Binangkita ni Presidente sa isa sa tatlo na posible sana niya noon na na-endorso for President is Senator Manny Pacquiao. Hindi ko po alam kung bakit hindi nakapag-antay si Senator Manny Pacquiao.
Opo. Ang sunod po niyang tanong, suportado ba ng Malacanang ang multa o community service laban sa mahuhuling magtatapon ng basura sa estero, ilog at kanal na itinuturong dahilan ng MMDA kung bakit nagbabara ang mga pumping station sa Kalakhang, Maynila?
Suportado po yan, pero alam ko po meron din tayong existing laws, no, that provide for more than just community service or fines sa mga nagtatapon po ng basura sa mga esteros. Tatapon po ng basura.
Yung last question po niya, at bilang abogado, ano daw po ang tamang parusa sa mga taong manghuhuli magtatapon ng basura sa estero? Magtatapon ng basura sa estero.
Depende po yan sa ordinansa o sa batas. So, we have to refer to existing laws po dahil nulong krimen, nula po na sinileche. Wala pong po pwedeng parusa kung wala pong batas o ordinansa na nagpapataw ng parusa. Okay, punta na tayo uli kay Lizelle, please. Thank you very much, Yusek Roque.
We have Ms. Jeremy Ventar from Action Radio. Good afternoon po. Sa po yung binibigay na bakuna ng National IATF sa Iloilo City.
Well, I acknowledge po na kulang talaga ang binibigay na bakuna sa buong Pilipinas, not just to Iloilo City.
Yes.
And we wish we had more vaccines. Pero as it stands po, talagang kulang po dahil kulang po talaga ang supply.
Here po in Region 6, there are government agencies and barangay captains who were reported to have violated the health protocols, particularly on physical distancing, consumption of liquor in public place, and the conduct of mass gathering event despite express prohibition of local guidelines and IATF guidelines. What are your thoughts regarding this, Secretary?
Well, nananawagan po tayo sa ating mga lokal na pamahalaan. Kinakailangan po ay i-apprehend itong mga lumalabag sa minimum health protocols kasi ito po talaga yung dahilan kung bakit dumadami ang kaso ng COVID. Habang nagkukumpulan, habang hindi po nag-observe ng minimum health standards, ayan po ang dahilan kaya dumadaming COVID. Kaya kinakailangan ipatupad po natin ang mga ordinansa na nagpapataw ng parusa doon sa mga hindi tutupad o susunod sa minimum public health standards. At meron nga pong warning ang Presidente sa mga lokal na opisyalis po kasama ng mga barangay captain kapag hindi nila pinatupad ang minimum health standards, sila mismo magkakaroon ng pananagutan on the basis of dereliction of duty. Okay, balik tayo kay Yusek Roque, please.
Yes, Secretary Roque.
Is Melo
hindi ko lang
Acuña
po
ready
alam
for
kung-
Zoom?
Kung paririnig na po ako ni Yusek Vega,
Wala na
may
si
tanong
Melo.
po sa kanya si Pia Gutierrez ng ABS-CBN.
Pia for Zoom.
Could you give us an update sa budget
Pia Gutierrez.
Could you give us an update na pinahahanda sa inyo ni Secretary Duque at kailan ito masasabit sa office ni Senator Pacquiao?
I think the question is for Yusek Vega.
Laboratory needs for the molecular labs in the country through the DBM.
Siguro po pakiulit dahil wala po kayong mic kanina.
Okay. I'd like to confirm Senator Pacquiao from the office of Secretary Francisco Duque. The utilization reported that for Bayanihan 1, the DOH was able to utilize 98% of the budget given. And for Bayanihan 2, 93% of this was utilized. We also submitted the report to the Office of Secretary Senator Pacquiao, the procurement through PSDBM, since this is a whole of government kind of approach, and we had the support of PSDBM in the procurement of several testing kits, laboratory reagents, and of course equipments through the PSDBM, and this include the PPEs, Office of...
For Secretary Roque, from Pia Gutierrez, tinanggap na ba ng Pangulo ang resignation ni General Parlades sa NTF-ELCAC?
Our next question comes from Bombo Radio. We have Ms. Rezi Bordon.
Okay, I will answer first, Yusek Roque. Tinanggap po ang resignation ni General Parlade as spokesperson of NTF-ELCAC, no? So that's what I was able to confirm from Secretary Lorenzana. Secretary Lorenzana.
Opo. Yung susunod pong tanong,
Rocky, meron pa ba?
Opo, tanong po ni Vance Fernandez, Doon daw po sa widening rift sa ruling party ng PDP laban, will the President consider reapproaching or asking Senator Manny Pacquiao to consider reconciliation daw po to help the party's chances of re-election in the coming 2022 presidential elections? Or will the President push through on the desires of PDP laban party leaders to allegedly evict Pacquiao from the party presidency? Evict Pacquiao from the party presidency.
Vance, I'm a spokesperson po. I'm not a fortune teller. I cannot see the future. In politics, anything is possible. Kaya po hindi ko masasagot yan. I cannot even speculate. One thing I've learned from the very limited period of time that I've been in politics is anything is possible.
Question po ni Vance
Thank
ay
you,
nasagot
Yusek.
niyo na,
Punta naman tayo kay
Secretary.
Giselle, please.
Our next question comes from Bombo Radio. We have Ms. Rezi Danyoso Bordon.
Yung magpapadala dito ng volume na COVID-19 na vaccines?
I'm not sure po, pero regular po yan. As soon as we receive further deliveries, meron na po yung programa na ipapadala nationwide yung mga bakunang yan.
Follow-up question lang po, ano po yung help ng national government sa Iloilo City with the kakulang po ng bed capacities dito sa mga hospitals?
Yusek
Thank
Vega,
you po.
that's why Yusek Vega is here as the treatment czar.
Thank you, Sakari. For Iloilo City, kailangan talaga mag-usap ang medical directors and institutions on the allocation of beds specifically for the critical care. And we have already instructed the retained hospital here to make sure that they will be able to improve and allocate more critical bed units, because I think this is much more needed in terms of a surge. So we are now in the process really of increasing the capacity of the hospitals by providing them support in terms of human resource and also of equipment. So we are here really to gather them and come up with a very good strategy on how best we can actually give access, especially for COVID patients who would need critical and critical care management. Thank you.
Okay. Wala na ba tayong nasa Zoom? Meron bang nasa Zoom na taga Malacanang Press Corps? Yusek Roque, go ahead please.
Yes, question from yung last question po ni Vance Fernandez about Senator Pacquiao and Secretary Duque, nasagot niyo na po. From Lanes Capante of GMA News Online, 2 suspects arrested by NBI for kidnapping in Manila are claiming they are police assets and that they get paid for kidnapping drug suspects. Is the palace or president aware of this practice by law enforcers?
Yan po yung illegal. Pero let me state na hindi po nila ina-allege na pulis sila. Sinasabi lang nila na they are police assets. That's an allegation. We'll have to verify that. We'll have to investigate. Napakadali po magsabi ng mga ganyang bagay. So antayin po natin ang resulta ng investigasyon.
From Joseph Morong of GMA News, are there any dangers to having 2 protocols for returning Filipinos like the one suggested in Cebu? Can this help avoid the entry of the Delta variant?
Well, sa ngayon nga po, ang desisyon ng Presidente, lahat po ay dapat sumunod po sa isang protocol, 10 araw na facility quarantine, test on the 7th day na PCR, at kung negatibo po ay release, and the last 4 days of quarantine will be at home. 4 days.
Second question po niya, why was the appeal of Lucena City to de-escalate not approved?
Sino po? Anong city?
Lucena City po. Lucena City po.
Well,
Lucena City
okay.
po.
May formula naman po yan, no? Yung 2-week ADAR, average daily attack rate, at saka ang pinaka-importante, healthcare utilization. Talaga pong kapag critical, dadalhin yung mga magkakasakit na critical po, no? Kung wala ng facilities. Yes, punta tayo kay Lizelle uli.
At this time, we have Mr. JP Hervas.
magiging higit 50 araw na mula nang isinailalim ang Iloilo City sa MECQ status. With that, may aasahan pa po bang karagdagang ayuda ang mga mamamayan ng Iloilo in order to survive this MECQ status?
Ang question is by July 15 or?
Yes po, by July 15 po, magiging 50 days na po, yung higit 50 days na po yung MECQ status. Ano po yung may karagdagang ayuda po ba na ibibigay ng national government?
Walang alam ko po, ang DSWD should be giving ayuda also to areas under MECQ. At the same time, the local government units also are giving also ayudas, dahil pinagtutulong-tulungan naman po natin ito. Pero I will assure you na hindi ko lang nakasama ngayon ang DSWD Regional Officer. Pero as soon as I leave here, I will call the DSWD and ensure na mag-release po na mas maraming ayuda ang DSWD para po sa Iloilo City.
The reason why Iloilo City requested for an appeal from the classification MECQ to GCQ with strict protocols is that our workers and our people are already hungry. And while Iloilo City continues to give out food assistance, Dole continues to give us tupad, we all know that the economic activities under MECQ are very limited. And that is why we requested for an appeal. Unfortunately, it was not approved by the IATF. I will be issuing an executive order later as soon as Secretary Roque is on his way. I will be issuing more economic activities for Iloilo City and allowing more businesses to open. But we will continue to strictly enforce the protocols. We cannot remain in this state. Man who already also attended to his constituents will also understand that really people have to work whether we like it or not. And we cannot forever give food assistance. Even the SWD is telling us